7, and welcome back to some more Sims for Create a Sim, the D&D series, where I take my D&D characters that I have came up with, made a backstory for, have the information down, and even drew them, and tried to create them into Sims. Now for this particular creation, this Sim, before I put up the picture of the drawing, if you are someone who doesn't like anything dealing with spiders, including like people that have spider features or look like a spider, I am just gonna put this out here. Don't continue on with this video because this lady technically is like a spider folk, or I think I remember something's called a strider, but I think they have an actual spider body. They're like a centaur but spider form. She is not, but she still has spider legs and like certain spider qualities. But at this point, you should start seeing the photo of the drawing that I use to sort of base the sim. I take the drawings and mainly use my drawings of how I see these people as a way to easier transition them into Sims. Now sometimes I do like a little leeway when, you know, I'm limited to what I have in my Sims game. If I don't have something that looks close enough to what they're wearing or their style of hair, I at least try to go for something like as close as possible, or something that I could see them with their type of personality and the way they are, of another way that they would potentially dress or style their hair, you know, etc. Things like that. So today we have Taja Webmist here, who is technically a homebrew class. Obviously, she is a spider-like being folk thing. I wrote her race down as an Arachne, which I know that there is like is it Greek mythology that there is a god named Arachne who actually has the spider body, and then the human torso, which is like, you know, the centaur but spider form thing. But I found this homebrew class that was called this, and the way there was no picture to go along with it, but the way to describe it was more of how I was going for her. I didn't want her to have like the spider body part. Basically, she was one of the ones that I sort of came up with design and just wanted to try to actually do before I come up with a lot of the stuff. There's a few of the characters where the design ended up coming first and then things were decided on later on. And honestly, my characters are actually sort of slowly evolving as time goes on. I don't think I've actually mentioned it in any of them, but technically all of my characters have a song that I put as sort of their theme song in a way. The song strongly either gives me a vibe that relates to the character, or it mentions things that make sense for the character. And there are some songs that sort of influence and change the character as well, because as I'm thinking about more stuff to add to their backstory, the song like really fits in some parts, and then there's some things in the song that is mentioned that I'm like, you know, if I twisted it a little bit and changed it up a little bit, it makes sense, and like add this to their story, and like the song fits even better, and so on and so forth. But also just like in between, like me and my boyfriend, when we talk about our characters with each other, and he's like the type that definitely randomly asks just these random questions. Like we went through one time and like, if your character was going to have a pet, what would it be? And things like that. Like, what would their favorite food be? What is like these little tiny questions that eventually, for some of them, spin out and actually give them more story and more depth to their personality. So technically my characters are always ever changing and evolving, but this is one of them that definitely has been changing quite a bit when it comes to the story-wise, just because I did start with the design first. She is a battlesmith artificer and a rune knight fighter, so she is multi-classing, and she is getting far enough in each one of them to have a subclass for both. That is what she is. Part of her design with the web like skirt thing that she has, and I have like little potions on it. The battlesmith artificer doesn't really have much to do with potions per se, but I still want to imagine that maybe this is like some of them are potions, but maybe some of them are things that she uses to help in the creation of weapons. Maybe there's like some that are like oils or whatever. I admit myself, when it comes to making weapons and making armors, I don't know enough about it to for surely know. I just know that sometimes there is things that you use to help like with lubrication and things like that. At least potentially maybe goes more to machinery versus just making weapons. But anyway, you get what I'm trying to say. But also, I just really liked the look of that skirt, and I wanted her to be an artificer. I wasn't for sure which subclass I was going to give her. I had her drawn out before I decided her subclass, technically, but I wanted her to be an artificer of some kind, just because spiders, you know, they make webs. There's some spiders that make intricate designs in their webs, and, you know, sometimes they make their webs to, like, help them out in certain situations. They also use it to basically catch their prey and roll them up and have them for dinner and all that sort of thing. So that was a big reason why I wanted her to have an artificer, and I also gave her fighter just because I imagine that she can actually use these 8 spider-like legs coming out of her back as weapons themselves. I just thought that would be a really cool idea, and with the artificer, I think there is one class that is like super offensive, but the artificer is like the newest class, so there's like subclasses being added to it all the time. But at my memory as it serves it, when I was creating her subclasses, I think there's only one that's like super offensive to a certain degree. I think the battlesmith technically is offensive itself in a way, but it's like it's still like the making is like a big part of the artificer. Now, I did give her the aspiration of purveyor of potions, though, when it comes to Sims, just because, again, that whole sort of making stuff thing is a big part of the artificer, and I wanted her, even though I think she's going to be equal levels in her artificer and her fighter, who knows, I might change that if I ever actually got to play her. But, or like even put her in like an NPC role, I might change that a bit. But for the most part, I think I'm going to go about even on them. So like 10 and 10. But I still want the artificer to be like her main one. Even if they're both equally leveled up the same, I want her artificer to be the more stronger side of her. So yeah, I gave her the purveyor of potions. And if I get all the traits to work, I'm going to have her as a kleptomaniac, a maker, perfectionist, romantic, and loner. The loner part comes from the fact that she is this arachne. She is a spider-like creature. A lot of people there's some people that look at her in disgust, but then there's also some people that look at her because I did want her to be beautiful. One of the things I had trouble with is trying not to make her look like my sim from the Forgotten series, Arachneon, which is like I created basically evolutions for the evolutions that Eevee doesn't have, and bug type is one of them that Eevee doesn't have, and I made like a spider-ish type evolution, and I named it Arachneon, and I was trying so hard to not make her look like Arachneon. There is some similarities here and there, but considering in some ways, I'm not gonna lie, Arachneon was partially some of the inspiration behind some elements of her design, so the fact that she looks somewhat like Arachneon is partially because she was slightly inspired off Arachneon. I really like how Arachneon turned out in my Sims game. I really think she's really pretty. So, and you know, she does have some of those spider vibes going on with her. So she was she had some influence on this character creation as I was drawing her. So yeah, she's very, very beautiful, so there's some people that can look past the fact that she's got some of these spider-like features. She's got these legs protruding out of her, but at the same time, it sort of makes her just inherently more of a loner type person. She sort of stays away from people because they don't really know how they're going to react. They're like, oh, giant bug, I don't like that. So she sort of stays away from that, and for the most part, but there's a part of her that wish that she could find more like her. That's technically one of her goals, like in the DM world, is the D&D world, is to see if there's anyone else like her, because to her knowledge, there's not many like her that have more human-like features with some spider features, so she's sort of wanting to find more like her. She also wants to sort of perfect her skills. Like, that's her main goal when it comes to D&D. Now, going back to the traits for Sims, like, talking about the loner one, it is one of the main ones. Like, I chose 3 to be the main ones, just in case this mod isn't working when I go to put them all in this house, that I'm going to be doing like a little TV reality show experiment thing with my D&D characters here. So whenever they get thrown into this house, I hopefully will have that mod working for the 5 traits, but if not, there are 3 traits chosen to be the main ones. Loner is one of them. Perfectionist is another one. There's something about spiders, especially the type of spiders who make designs in their webs, that I'm like, they really go through an effort of making that much web and putting it in a design that they want it to. So part of me really gets this perfectionist feel from a spider person. So she does have her perfectionist. She tries to make things and perfects her skills, gets better at them. She wants to try to achieve perfection, even though she knows that true perfection is not technically an achievable thing, if you get what I'm saying. Like, she's aware that things are always not going to be 100% perfect, but she wants to get as close to perfect eventually as she possibly can. Now, the third trait that's going to be the main trait, which is the maker trait, that is pretty obvious, sort of ties in with the purveyor of the promotions being the aspiration, and that is the whole artificer side, the fact that she makes things, also she's a spider, making webs, stuff like that. So that those two sort of have the same reason behind them for picking them. As far as a kleptomaniac, I just want to imagine that she does every once in a while take things that she thinks she can use to make her inventions better, her creations, her weapons, whatever it is that she is trying to make. If she sees something that, you know, maybe she can't necessarily obtain for whatever reason, whether it's because someone won't let go of it or she can't afford it or whatever, she might would try to get a hold of it. She might would steal it, but, you know, she doesn't necessarily, you know, she's not like a rogue or anything. She doesn't have that, like, ability to stealth very well. So who knows if she gets away with it too much. But, and then the romantic side. So the romantic is sort of like I was describing. She does have some allure and beauty to her, even though she does have these spider features. And she does sort of know that, and it does make her sort of have this romantic side. She wishes that she can have more relationships, especially like more on the romantic, intimate side, but, you know, sometimes her spiderness is a deterrent to that. So yeah, but she has that. Now, I'm glad that I did have these spider legs from when I actually used them for, what was her name? It was one of the Daedra Mythala? No. Yes? Maybe. One of them was related to spiders, and the fact that I'm actually using these legs again is quite interesting. Didn't think I'd use them again, but here I am using them yet again. Obviously, it's just 4 legs, it's not the 8 legs, but we can imagine that there's 4 other legs around there somewhere. You at least get the idea she's a spider lady. Now, as far as her dress, like her outfit, I'm pretty actually happy with it. Obviously, I don't have the spider web, but putting that, like, sort of underwear lacy thing underneath the, like, leotard, the onesie type bodysuit thing gives, at least to me, some of that feel of what the spider webs is doing on her actual drawing outfit. Obviously, it's not over top of it, though. But, you know, overall, I was pretty happy with how she turned out. I hope that you like how she turned out as well. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I know I've been on a bit of a break lately. I think there was one other character before this that I actually pre-recorded before, like, recorded the voiceover before my break. But I am back. There was a few things going on, family-wise and life-wise. I just decided to take a break, and then in the mix of my break, things happened, so I just made my break a little bit longer than planned, but I am back, and we are continuing on with these D&D characters. I hope you're looking forward to seeing more of them and eventually seeing them in the house. Let me know who is your favorite so far. Just as a little interesting fact about Taja here. So this is just a little thing that I thought was hilarious, and if my boyfriend is listening to this, and he's probably going to get irritated about this part, but at one point we both took a lot of our characters and we put them in, like, not going into super big details, but just a basic of what they would be if they were all level 20. In a free-for-all, we rooted out who would go down pretty quickly for whatever reasons, and then once we got to, like, the 10 left, it was 10 or 15 left, we started doing one-on-ones, and we actually brought out the D&D dice, and we would roll them and things like that, and just see which characters would come out on top. Taja had some luck going on with her, and she ended up winning the whole thing. She was not the character of mine that I thought had a chance of winning it, but she did, so I just think that's really cool and a little interesting fact for you all. So, there you go. Taja technically won, like, a tournament thing when all of my characters and all of my boyfriend characters faced off, so yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, hit that lovely like button, subscribe. You know all that lovely YouTube goodiness. I'll hopefully see you in the next one, but until then, bye bye!